This is iFanboy Pick of the Week number 954, brought to you by iFanboy listeners like you. Hey, this is Josh Flanagan. This is my co-host, Conor Kilpatrick.
Hello.
Your middle name's not Aloysius, right? That's not
Aloysius.
That's just a joke from the 50s that we had, and now it doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah. I don't even know an Aloysius.
I've only heard it in the joke middle name context, and I don't even remember from where, but it really stuck with me.
Yeah.
You know what? Someone should name their kid Aloysius. I think that should make
or at least the comeback as a middle name.
Who's that? That's Aiden, and that's Hayden, and that's
Peyton,
and Aloysius.
Oh God, that's gonna come back, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm hoping that this is where it happens. And someday, like in 5 years, I'll be outside. I'll be like, "Get back here, Aloysius!" I'll be like, "I did that."
Do we get a cut?
I don't think that's how that works. It's just pride.
I see.
Every week, one of us picks the book that they like the best from their stack of comics, and we call that the pick of the week. We will talk about that comic book and other comics and the patron pick and listener mail, and it'll be a good old time. There will be spoilers, probably. I'm not promising you that there will be, but I'm definitely not promising you that there won't be. So that's on you. There's a list. It's available. If you don't want to hear one of the parts because you don't want to get spoiled, then you can wait. Although,
skip it.
No, but after you read your books, you should come back and listen to it because I believe it enhances. De-skip. You had the pick of the week.
I did. And you know what? I don't like to be expected. I take no pleasure in when it's the obvious choice.
Right.
But sometimes it's the obvious choice. This week it was G.I. Joe #1 from Image Comics Skybound, the Energon universe reboot that we've been leading to with all of these miniseries, Destro and Duke and Cobra Commander and Scarlet. Written by Josh Williamson and Tom Riley, the team behind Duke, the one that kicked off the Energon G.I. Joe side of things. Colors by Jordi Belair, Russ Wooten. It's the same team from Duke. And, I had a good solid week this week. And I had a lot of books I enjoyed. But, I was most excited for G.I. Joe. And it delivered a lot of fun things. Because if you're going to do this, it's going to be difficult. We've talked about this with the other books. To thread the needle of nostalgia, familiarity, but also doing something new to make it worth doing. Because you're already doing the old book. The old book's already out there.
It can't be so far from what you like.
Right.
So that you don't like it. But it's can't be the same thing. You're right.
This is what the Star Wars people fail at every time.
Mm-hmm.
And so, we've watched Duke. He appeared in the Transformers book. His buddy was smushed by Decepticon. He went a little nutty. His miniseries was all about him coming back in from the cold and, getting recruited by Hawk. Was it Hawk or Flag? Flag, right?
You know what? Hawk. There's a moment in here where I had that same question. Hawk
I think
or
it's Flag. I think it's Flag. I can't scroll to where it is. Anyway.
Flag's above Hawk.
Flag is the top.
Who's the guy who comes and talks to him? Colonel. So that's Flag.
This is Colonel Flag. Yeah. It's got to be Flag, right? We can't spend an hour.
Where's Flint?
Not here yet. And so he gets recruited to form G.I. Joe, and that's where we're sort of starting here. And to begin with, this G.I. Joe team, the original G.I. Joe was formed to fight the ruthless terrorist organization known as Cobra. And this one is not formed for that purpose, because Cobra is the thing they don't even know exists yet. This team is formed to fight Transformers, even though they don't really know what that is. Mm-hmm. That's an interesting twist.
That should be dumb. And just because of the fact that it's not dumb, they get points.
It is familiar. They go on a mission. They end up fighting Cobra without realizing what's happening. Cobra Commander's there, Destro's there, there's troops there. But there's enough interesting things, like Baroness is on the Joe team. That is inherently interesting.
Yeah, it's different.
She's not a good guy. She was in prison with Duke. She is a war criminal.
She's known as a terrorist. And because of that, there's this constant tension of we're just sitting here going, you guys, you shouldn't do this. This is not going to, she's going to fall in love with that silver head man. There's no way that doesn't happen.
Right. So the team, right as it starts, so G.I. Joe was formed to find and combat deadly emerging weapons technology, a.k.a. Decepticons.
Right. So just as a recap to the Duke series, he saw some crazy robot Energon shit.
Yeah.
And then he was like, we got to do something. But everybody thought he was crazy. And
right.
So he went on the run and they put him in prison. And then they found out he was right. And they were like, why don't you take over this team? We're sorry. And that brings us to now. And he was like, only if this lady can come with me. And they were like, all right.
She was there in the breakout. And so the founding team is Duke, Stalker, Baroness, Cover Girl, Clutch, Rock and Roll.
And who is that other dude on the cover? Because I don't
Well, he's the guy in the seam in the middle. He's the new character, and I have thoughts on that. We'll get to that in a second. I thought it was very smart and fun to make Cobra's laser weapons because of Energon.
No, I agree with that. Yeah.
Destro's like, hey, I got this new thing to show you, and they've all got laser weapons like on the cartoon. And he's like, this is from the Energon technology. I was like, oh, that's smart.
Yeah, because we all just took it for granted when we were kids. We're like, I guess they got laser weapons.
Right.
Like it was just accepted. And now in retrospect, I'm like, this is ridiculous. But then again, what would also be ridiculous is Full Metal jackets flying around at 3:00 on weekday afternoons for kids.
Right.
So there is that.
As much Vietnam trauma as there was, that we weren't ready for
And
that.
they were like, you know what? Use the Star Wars laser sound. Won't people think that the Star Wars laser? It's fine. Use exactly that sound.
There's a lot of smart stuff here. There's a dual briefing where Duke is briefing G.I. Joe and Destro's briefing Cobra, and they have it in a double-page spread.
I was just looking at that, and it's, at first I got a little confused looking at it, but now that I sort of looked at it again, it's actually really, I don't know that I've seen that. And it's like Duke talks, you slide over, and Destro's talking. The color behind him changes from blue to red, and then everything that comes after that is Destro talking, which is pretty interesting.
And so what's also cool is that the thing that they're both going to investigate, which is this big piece of Cybertron, happened in Transformers this week as well. So this piece of Cybertron came through a portal and crashed into the ocean over in Transformers. And here in G.I. Joe, both teams are going to it to investigate it. But that was a cool way of tying the books in without making it. Looks like you had to read it. It was just like, if you did, it was cool. If you didn't, it's fine. The dynamics are fun. The Tom Riley art's it seemed a little more cartoony than the Duke stuff, but I liked it.
What's interesting about the art is that when I look at it on its own, maybe just like a frame or like there's actually the back cover, and I was like, I don't like this. Mm-hmm. But in action, reading it in storytelling form, I do like it, if that makes sense.
That's interesting. I do like it quite a bit.
Yeah.
Although I do think it's slightly different. Cobra Commander's cool in here. He's got a slightly new look, which is, very classic.
But he's Cobra Commander.
He's Cobra Commander. He's actually much more Cobra Commander than. Although we do see him in Darth Vader style with the helmet off. Mm-hmm. And he's definitely Snake Man. People have been saying he's not Snake Man, he's Snake Man.
But he's not a snake. He's a human person who was made Snake Man.
Right, but he's still a Snake Man.
He was once a man.
In the comics, he was a used car salesman.
Right.
And that was what made it so smart.
Well, somebody, I don't know if it was Josh Williamson or Robert Kirkman or somebody else, was like, we're doing the Cobra Law thing. And I guarantee you there were discussions. I guarantee there's probably fierce debate. Or maybe Kirkman said it and everyone complained about it behind his back and didn't say it to him, which is how it works in entertainment. But I do respect it that they were like, we're going for this. And
great idea, boss.
Okay.
Yeah, so in addition to being a Snake Man, he's got, at least we can't see his face, but we see a scaly head. He's got a robot hand like Luke Skywalker. Mm-hmm. Anyway, we see a little bit of Cobra Commander, but he's cool.
Okay, and then I'll let you go on. Yep. I want to say that my favorite panel in this book, my favorite moment is Duke jumps out and grabs the skid of one of those Fang is it Fang? I can't remember. I think it's a Fang helicopter. The little ridiculous one-seater. And the line on the third panel that Cobra Commander says is, "This man is insane." And I can always hear Chris Latta's voice when I say it, but I really appreciate the ellipsis that they put in there.
Yeah.
This man is insane. Like,
there were definitely a lot of
impressed.
good lines from Cobra Commander that you could hear as Chris Latta. Yeah. That was terrific.
Yeah. I don't think there's anybody alive who is basically our age like Josh Williamson is. We are the same demographic. Who could possibly write Cobra Commander and not write him like Chris Latta? I submit to you it's impossible.
It's impossible.
It'd be like trying to write Yoda with like an effete British accent.
It's
you couldn't do it.
Indelible in our psyche as people.
Yeah.
Before we get to the ending, I want to talk about the new character. So on the cover, he's the guy in the suit with the rifle.
With the vintage shotgun.
with the Henry rifle.
Yeah. It's a rifle, not a shotgun.
In the book, he is like on a mission undercover in like Dubai or something. The United Arab Emirates, maybe. And he's cool. Like the action sequence is really well. That's one of the best drawn action sequences of page 18, where the guy lands on a glass table and we see it through his legs. That was a great drawing. But we don't need any new characters. There's like 300 G.I. Joes. By introducing a new character means you're giving someone the shaft.
Can I tell you something? I forgot about this scene, and then I just remembered looking at it, and that was the one scene I had no idea what was going on.
Right.
And I didn't recognize him as being from the cover. I just didn't know who we were talking about. So earlier when I said maybe that was Hawk or whoever, I must have been thinking of this dude. Who I don't know his name or where he comes from, and maybe they could have used a skosh more explanation in it.
Yeah, I mean, he seems to be a badass operative. That's all we really know.
Abu Dhabi.
I just don't need him. There's 300 of them. They are ethnically diverse. Pick anyone from the bench. But you don't need to add new people to this.
Well, it's early. We don't know.
I understand. You want to put your stamp on it.
Did they say his name?
I feel like I read it in marketing material.
Okay.
It's not in the book.
Okay.
In the Duke series and in this, we get a lot of people talking up how awesome rock and roll is. He's Duke's best soldier. He doesn't worry about anything when rock and roll's around. And I should have caught that. But the thing is, I don't think about these things with G.I. Joe.
Sure. No one hits anything.
So in the battle, when they're fighting Cobra over this fallen piece of Cybertron, and all the Cobra soldiers have these laser rifles, they're like, oh shit, like what kind of guns are those? And they're kind of in trouble. And so Rock and Roll knocks out a soldier, takes his rifle, runs at a group of them, and then they proceed to just shoot him full of laser holes. And that's the climax of the issue. The last page is him getting hit 3, 6, 8 times by laser rifles.
So here's my complaint.
Yep.
He's supposed to be the best soldier, right?
Mm-hmm.
What he says is, I've been shot before, I can handle a light show.
Mm-hmm.
That's too stupid. That's a stupid thing to do. A soldier wouldn't do that. Unless it was like to save everybody's life.
Well, that's what he's doing.
on
At the top of the
grenade.
page, he's saying, clutch cover, go get out of here. He's basically holding them all off.
I guess. But it didn't sort of come off that way. And then the other thing I would say is that I like the Rock and Roll character.
You love him.
And
he's blonde.
I love bearded characters, it turns out. Even when I was a kid. Anyway, the point being, though, that like we actually didn't get enough time to know this version of this character at all to make his death that meaningful.
Yes, all of this is based on nostalgia. Nothing is earned on the page. It's like the JJ Star Trek movies. Like, no one cares if Spock dies if you've only seen those 2 movies, but you only care about it if you know about Spock from the culture.
Yeah, but I think even as a reader, just with this, I think it would have been nicer to spend a little more time with him before you sacrifice.
I agree. They could have pumped him up a bit more.
I mean, he might not be dead.
Well, that's the other thing I was thinking. So this is G.I. Joe, right? So I didn't even expect him to die. So that makes it a shocking ending. And so if he's dead next issue, I'm not surprised. But if he's alive for some reason because of the Energon, I'm also not surprised. Because we've seen in Transformers, the Energon used to heal.
That would make their new energy weapons
useless,
incredibly ineffective.
So maybe he's dead and these lasers actually kill, and that's totally fine. If you want to pull that string to show that this is not your normal G.I. Joe, that's a fine way to do it. But if also he's not dead and he's been changed somehow, that might be interesting as well.
Cyber rock and roll.
He only plays synths, no more guitars.
I'm looking at the back of Cobra Commander's head, and it's not necessarily scaly.
Sure, it could be scars. It could be
scars.
Yeah.
His normal hand is normal. We see a snake in a tube along with some of the red element from the mask device. I don't know. He might just be fucked up.
He looks like Darth Vader.
Yes, there's strong.
And Darth Vader also had a helmet go on the back of his head.
Yeah, Sebastian Shaw kind of deal. Obviously, yeah.
Yeah, the one true Darth Vader.
I just put this together. That helmet is clearly influenced by Darth Vader's helmet. I've never noticed it before because I guess I was just so used to that shape as what bad guys wore. But what other helmet have you ever seen that did that?
Listen, we were dumb kids.
Yep.
You know, what are you going to do? I thought this was terrific. You know, we've been looking forward to it. It was fun. They have big shoes to fill. I mean, the other book is still happening, right? It's a legendary comic. And so all you really can do is try to have fun with this one because you're not going to match it. You're not going to go for 300 issues, but you can have a good time telling this interesting Energon Universe G.I. Joe story, and I think they're doing a really good job of it so far.
I got to say, Josh Williamson has evolved into being the perfect person to do this.
Totally.
They couldn't do it better. He's got exactly the right sense of how to utilize this pop culture. He's not Grant Morrison. Like, that's not what you're bringing him in for.
Revel in it.
Yes. And I feel, like when you read the essay, and the people are like, I just loved it so much. I can't wait to get in the... Like, most of the time, it's bullshit. I think Josh is serious. And I'm not kidding. I mean, I've known him for a long time, and he's a pretty enthusiastic dude. He's just now, he's really, honed his craft. It's really fun.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I'm looking forward to it. It's interesting to see how long they will... they're clearly teasing out Snake Eyes. If they ever even use him. But they gotta use him. But how long will they tease him out for? We'll find out.
It's a big wad to blow, so you may as well hang out. You're going to blow up rock and roll right away. You better make this worth it. Make it count. What is it? Is that what's the line from Saving Private Ryan?
I just watched that 3 days ago.
What's he say to him?
Does it make it worth it? I think he says make it worth it.
Yeah, I think so. Earn this?
Earn this. The only other book that I even thought about for Pick of the Week was Batman Gotham by Gaslight, the Kryptonian Age #6, which was originally listed as a 12-issue mini. And then I saw this issue said 6 of 6, and I thought, what?
But
what they're doing is breaking it up into 2 6-issue volumes because, God forbid, we have a comic go past the 6th issue. So we'll start over the new Batman Gotham by Gaslight volume #1 for the next issue, which will be just the same story. Because I was about halfway through this book and I was like, this is not ending. This is not a book that's ending.
And how happy I am about that.
Right.
This would have been my pick of the week. This is doing the thing that comic books don't do all that often that they should, is that every issue has been better than the one that came before it. First issue, I was like, I'm not sure. Second one, like they did a lot of setup, but I hung with it to trust the creators because I think there was a Gotham by Gaslight sequel at some point, and it wasn't all that memorable.
There was, yeah.
And the other thing, and we're going to talk about it, is that this week is that there are a lot of Elseworlds type DC Universe stories going. There was 3 this week.
We got 3 Batman Elseworlds books to talk about in this block alone.
Right, exactly. Block. And this has been the best of the bunch.
Oh yeah, this is the best one.
Leandro Fernandez is absolutely one of my favorite artists. And it's all this is actually almost the same thing as the G.I. Joes, what you're saying, is that it has to be familiar enough, but different enough. And I think that this really does a great job. Having Clark Kent as an aw shucks sheriff in a town in the frontier, as opposed to just a reporter, is, I think, a lot more fun. They're all the characters, Pete Ross and Jimmy and whatever. That's all fun. Having the introduction here of, they keep having the introduction of Raj Al Ghul in a cool way, but then they keep pulling this thing where you think you know who the character they're teasing is going to be, and it's not. And so, like, in the hold of the ship that Wonder Woman is on, I don't think I thought it was going to be Martian Manhunter.
No, I thought it was Phantom Stranger.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, right. Because he came in. That was like the third one. Like, at first, it's like Red Eyes. Should have known that right away. For some reason, I was thinking of Superman. And then they show you and it's Phantom Stranger. And I was like, he doesn't have glowing eyes.
Well, they kept calling him the Stranger and he had a medallion on, which is, and so then it's revealed it's actually a Martian Manhunter.
A lot of good stuff like that. And then the way that, who's the character? El Diablo? Yeah, El Diablo, the infamous mesmerist.
Yeah.
Like, he manages to take out Superman in a way that,
with magic.
Yeah. And I just thought, oh yeah, that right. Because at first I was like, well, he took great good care of him. And then I thought, does nobody hear about this evil circus as it travels around?
So what we didn't realize is the subtitle's been the Kryptonian age. And what really this story has been the forming of the Justice League. The next volume is called A League for Justice. And it's got them all on the cover. So by the end of the story, we've got Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, Green Lantern, Martian Manhunter, Cyborg's been in the story, and then Flash is also in the story. He's the one that's in the Luthor's using. So we've met them all, and so the next issue will be that. I mean, this almost feels like it could very easily be an ongoing story.
There's no way they can keep this up.
No, it's a lot. They're oversized issues.
Not even that. Just like if they kept it going, it would get bad. They'd put somebody on it and there'd just be adventure after another. But this weird version of this team is much more, I was going to say more unique, but that's stupid, but is differentiated from when they do it a lot. And just because it needs to be said, the Green Lantern costume is fantastic, but it pales in comparison to that Superman costume. My God, that was wonderful.
The Old West Superman?
Yeah, it's so good. I know he's got a mask on. He's not supposed to, but whatever. I don't care. Although it's an Old West thing. He's like the Lone Ranger. It's great.
Yeah. He looks like the Lone Ranger, but in blue. Yeah, so the whole thing is, it all comes together in Smallville. And Josh mentioned there's the evil circus that Harley Quinn is sort of the ringleader of, and Killer Croc and a bunch of people are in there. And they're really using it to find I guess it's kryptonite.
Yeah.
And in the bank. I'm sure Luthor hired them. Did he say if they did or not? These kind of stories are about taking the DCU as you know it, putting it in a different setting, putting the characters you know in different spots, but making them recognizably themselves. Andy Diggle, Leandro Fernandez. It's been great.
And it's goofy.
It should be.
I know, but there's times where I think if Gotham by Gaslight is not that goofy, it's pretty self-serious. And so it took me a little while to figure out, like, they're actually having some fun with this. It's a little more big dumb superhero than that stuff. And I think that serves it really well.
Yeah.
This was great. I was so happy. I was like, okay, because I think this is the end of it. And then it kind of ended. I was like, well, that's not the end. And then you flip to see the story continues in this is why previews suck, because if I'd seen this, it wouldn't have been nearly as exciting. But to flip that last page and be like A League for Justice, I was like, hell yes.
Coming next year. Yeah. Because we don't read the previews, but I go into Lunar every week to see what DC books are coming out when I make my list. And so I see them. Like it said, Gotham by Gaslamp, Kryptonian Age, and 6 of 12. Or 1 through 12, 2 for all up through 6, it said of 12. And then for this one, it changed to 6 of 6. And I was like, wait a minute, excuse me? And so it's just nice to see it's ending, even if they are renumbering it. Fine, whatever.
It was delightful. I really enjoyed it.
So now we have the second issue of Absolute Batman. This is also Elseworlds, even though it takes place. I mean, all books take place in the DCU somehow, but the DC universe is aware of this Elseworlds. Anyway, it doesn't matter. I liked this. I wonder two things. One, how much of it I like is because of the Nick Dragotta art, and two, how long they can keep this up. Because eventually the shine wears off all these things.
Sure.
For Ultimate Spider-Man, it lasted a long time, but the shine eventually wore off. But all of these reimaginings eventually get ground down for lots of reasons. They can ground down, but eventually the shine gets worn off. And I'm not saying it has. It's only issue 2, and I shouldn't be complaining about it. But I did wonder that. I didn't feel as excited about it as I did the first issue. But I did like it, though.
I think the thing about this issue, I had to completely, because there were so many Batman Elseworlds stories this week. Like, the thing I really had to like get myself back to where this one was. I was like, wait, what's the deal here? Who is this? You know, and then I was like, who's this woman talking to Gordon? I was like, oh, she's Martha. I thought they created another Martha for a second. And I was like, oh no, that's Batman's mom because she's still alive. It started coming back to me. But like, there's a bit where she comes in to talk to Bruce and he's a kid. And like, it's not super clear that those are flashbacks.
Well, the coloring is different. It changes to like
yeah, but that's not.
There's like a fade on it.
Yeah, but I hadn't seen Jim Gordon yet, so I just thought we're cutting against Jim Gordon.
We saw him in the last issue.
I don't remember that. I just told you I don't remember what was going on at all. So I just know you cut to Jim Gordon in a bed, and I was like, all right, what's going on with this guy? Then Bruce goes into this poker game with this universe's version of some of his rogues gallery.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, this is a little on the nose. It's close to being like, this is tougher to work out. And also, like, do they not know who he is? Look at him. I know that that's the Superman. I did think it. Like, he's asking a lot of questions that would be exactly what Batman would ask.
Well, they're all pretty. I mean, look at Penguin. He's buff. They're all pretty big.
Yeah.
Seems to be the style.
It's weird because I don't think he's from Brooklyn. I enjoy, I mean, but like at the end of the day, if I was just looking at this book, which doesn't look like any Batman book I have ever seen, I would be tickled pink. I would be thrilled. And it all comes down to like, did you like this book? Yes. Do you remember anything about it? I was like, I only remember a gigantic dump truck with a bat on the front of it driving out from under a building that made no sense physically, but I didn't care because look at it.
Well, look at the previous page of him driving off in the cockpit.
Yep.
With Alfred getting knocked back by the centrifugal force. It's a gorgeous book. I'm not saying it's bad. I have that thought in the back of my head is that it's shiny right now, but it'll be interesting to see how long that shininess lasts.
You know, this is Scott. Scott writes long form.
Yeah.
There's enough for 12, 18, 24, like depending on how you roll it all out. I mean, there's a lot of conflict here and a lot of little avenues to explore and a lot of, you know, how is this different? How is this going to remind me of the other one, and how is it going to give me that feeling? The fact that it's willing to be big and not dumb is not really the right word, but just like let it rip.
Right.
You know, why? I mean, like on the one thing I said, it's a little on the nose to have him playing, you know, poker with all the villains at the same time. Like, all right, go for it. I've never seen that.
There's childhood friends. Yeah.
Whatever. You know, but the dump truck was really like the signal to me that, you know, like as soon as you start thinking about this Grant Morrison rule, you start thinking about that in any context whatsoever.
Right.
And it falls apart because where do you even build that?
You can't. There's so many things you have to buy into to enjoy the comics, and you need to buy into them, and those are.
And what I'm saying is, yeah, I appreciate it when books make me do that. I love the silhouette of this Batman in the context of this book.
At first, that cape is weird, but there's a part where he wraps it around himself like a scarf, like he's in the Middle East. And look, I thought that was an awesome look.
Yeah, look at that. That's cool.
Look at the page right before the dump truck on page 21, where he's jumping down the air shaft and him landing on the sort of the side of the shaft. His feet are
I noticed that.
It's a beautiful book.
There's like a lot of Frank Miller in there, but then there's also like, God, there's Sam Keith and Kelly Jones, and it's a lot of good things that are sort of not any of them specifically, but some of it.
Again, I want to clarify. I'm not saying this is bad now. I just a thought in my head is how long will the shininess last? But I mean, this is more fun than the regular Batman book.
Sure,
way more fun.
There's a noir version of this that came out this week. And I'm not saying go out and buy it, but if you get a chance to look at it, like it's basically the black and white art before coloring.
Smart. It's smart that they've been doing that.
Yeah, it's gorgeous. It's like we're gonna beat everybody to the artist edition punch.
It's been good.
It looks like the art. It looks like he draws this for real. I mean, not digitally. Like it looks, you know, I'm so sorry. It's not what I mean. But like, if you look at the way that the markers and the darks look on it, then oh God, it's cool.
Good. And so if I was ranking this week's Batman Elseworlds books, which we're talking about, it would be in the order we're talking about them. So Gotham by Gaslight was the best, I thought. Absolute Batman was the second best. And then Batman the Dark Age Book 6 ended that miniseries from Mark Russell, Michael and Laura Allred, and Dave Sharp. And this was a weird mini from my point of view. In the beginning, in the first issue or so, it was like a little shaky. I wasn't sure if it was working. It got really good in the middle. And I don't know how much I liked this final issue. I thought it was fine. But the problem was that Superman's The Space Age was so well done. And everything really worked. And at the end, he had a really satisfying ending that you saw the structure in it and it all made sense and it was well done. And this one, I'm not sure the ending of this was any good.
The ending was a head scratcher. And in that, I don't mean that it didn't make sense, because it did. I understood exactly what happened. But so the whole story has been taking place in Kandor. What happened to the people in Kandor? Did he empty the bottle out?
They're not in Kandor. They just also bottled up Gotham.
Oh, so Catwoman went in there and got another bottle.
In this reality, instead of crisis happening, the world was ending and they could bottle up one city. And so they choose to bottle up Gotham.
And Superman was like, earn this.
And so this whole thing's been taking place in the Fortress of Solitude inside the bottle. And then there's a whole portal situation where they go through a portal and only Batman and the Joker make it.
I didn't like that.
Which didn't really make sense with the other characters being around. Dick Grayson dies. I thought that was actually really good and emotional. Where they're on the roof with the Joker and he's bombed the building, it's on fire, and the roof collapses, and when Dick falls in, Batman calls him Robin, which I thought was a nice emotional moment. I still have a real big problem with the dullard Flash portrayal. I think it's just a bad choice. Of all the characters, Hal Jordan would make sense, but Barry's a nerdy scientist. Anyway, I don't know. There were weird choices in this book. There were great sequences and scenes, and I thought it looked great, but overall, I don't think this was as satisfying as Superman.
I think it didn't live up to its promise, and I think it was lopsided. I mean, I feel like while it was very long and there was a lot there, I mean, the end to me sort of came out of nowhere. I mean, I guess I can see why it was planned, but I was like, what is this? Batman wins.
Right.
But I don't know. I think it's really interesting. And all these things are saying, it's not like you phoned it in. I don't know that I understand it, and I don't know that it feels... The ending doesn't feel right. It's
not as cohesive. Superman was really cohesive, and this didn't feel cohesive. It felt fun, and I liked reading it, and there were certainly interesting things that happened in it.
Oh, yeah. No, much more good than bad. I'm just trying to understand why, what, how.
If Space Age was a 5-star book, this is a 3.5 for me. It was good, but it wasn't great. And if someone was a big fan of Allred or Russell, I'd say, yeah, read it.
There were 5-star sections.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
There's a bit here where Batman and Catwoman start making out and he just grabs her ass. And I was like, all right, he's up. It just seemed gratuitous.
Okay. Josh in his old age.
No, it's not that. It's about placement. It's about it just seems out of place. I mean, I get it. He's repressed.
Apparently Batgirl's catchphrase is, what in hell's turkey?
There's Mark Russell poking through.
What is it?
Did he say punch him in the beef? He did. That was Mark Russell.
That was Flintstones.
Well, here you go. Do you remember how hard we laughed at punch him in? We had a question about funny books. Did we not mention a single Mark Russell book? That is...
I'd say Flintstones, yeah.
That's a shocking oversight. Punch him in the beef. Remember how funny the Flintstones was? How funny Red Sonja was?
Yes, we should have mentioned Mark Russell.
Sorry, everyone.
So that ended, and certainly not bad. It just wasn't as exciting as I thought it was going to be.
I'm laughing at punch him in the beef.
You got me thinking about the beef.
Punch him in the beef. Fuck Tarkington. Those are.
We mentioned fuck Tarkington.
Patrons. The patrons are the ones who make this possible, and you're like, why would anybody listen to this constantly? Well, there's a group of people who really enjoy this. And we would like more of you to be like them. You can directly support the show and lock shows for everybody, become part of a great community on Discord and Facebook. And when I say great community, I'm not overselling it. There's a monthly patron hangout that we do live, which is a good time. It's a high point of the month for me. I hope it is for you. You, the larger you, not you, Connor. There is a discount if you sign up for a full year as opposed to month by month. You can now send or receive gift memberships. You can put them on your holiday wish list. It's like the human fund. Go to patreon.com/ifanboy/ seriously.
This is a real thing. Patreon.com/ifanboy/gift. You can literally gift people memberships.
You can give somebody else. You can give their gift to us.
Right, but you can give them the gift of being a patron.
I get
it. Give them all of this.
Human fund. Money for people. iFanboy.threadless.com.
I'm just saying, don't you have someone in your life that you love that you want to give
Who
them the
loves
gift
us.
of iFanboy?
Yeah.
No, they don't even have to. They just get the gift of iFanboy, whether they want it or not.
I would think they'd be much more resentful if they didn't even care about us. Like, it'd be one thing if for years they've been like, man, I really do love the show. I just haven't had the ability to do it. And somebody's like, well, I'm going to make that happen for you. Be like, oh, okay, thanks. That makes sense. But somebody else who maybe was like, no, I never intended to do that. Why would you do that? I shouldn't be making fun of this, right?
No.
There's a merch store. iFanboy.threadless.com. There are as I'm recording right now, there are 13 designs to be put on t-shirts and
there might be
stuff.
more as this show is on the air.
It's very
Hopefully,
possible.
Very possibly.
This is not, so what we're saying is a lot could go wrong and we're not willing to promise.
There might be more than 20 shirts now.
Are there? I don't think so.
Know. I'm not good at math.
iFanboy.com/supporter has a direct donation via PayPal. You can go to iFanboy.com/Amazon, where there's a general shopping affiliate link. You've been on the web. You know how that works. 'Tis the season and all that. So if you use that, it costs you nothing, but it helps us out a great deal. Bookshop.org. We have links on the website where appropriate. And what they will do is take you to a place where if you would like to buy a book, you will be buying it from an independent bookstore. Some of the most important businesses to our culture, and we're very happy to be able to help them with that where possible.
Is the energy off in this episode?
Is the what?
Is our energy weird? You're
It's
exhausted.
different.
I'm exhausted. Everyone's exhausted.
I'm exhausted, but I'm not unhappy. And I've said
No,
some
I'm having
things
fun. I'm
that
just saying I feel like things are weird.
It is weird.
Not in like a bad way.
I do know that I have said things on this episode, and I thought, that's pretty good for somebody who feels like shit.
So tired. Helen of Wyndhorn to number 6. Wyndhorn. I added a D to that name for some reason.
Foghorn Windhorn.
Foghorn Wyndhorn.
I'll say. Helen.
It's number 6.
Who says I don't do impressions anymore?
Tom King, Bilqui, Evely, or Evely. We don't ever got confirmation on how that is, but
Evely. I don't know.
Evely, we know?
I don't know. I feel like I know, but I don't know why I know.
So you predicted last issue that the flash forward would be unsatisfying, and it was. It was unsatisfying. I don't know why we had the flash forward. It didn't make any sense. It didn't really add anything to the story.
I really loved the actual part of this.
The main story was great.
I thought it ended well. I liked the sort of emotional unlocking of this weird character and the growth and the sort of understanding of who she is. I could have used more time with them. Like another, so this all happened. So what does it mean?
Right. I thought that's what the flash forward would tell us what it meant. And it didn't really do that.
No. It's one thing that the lady narrated it. And if that had just been it, The Princess Bride or something, that would have been fine. But the other bit, I don't understand at all what that was about. And like they sold the nerds comic books and now the person has it and then he has the box with the tapes in it. But so what?
Yeah. It wasn't quite the Rorschach diary ending of Watchmen. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
We know what that meant, at least possibly. This, I don't know what they're supposed to be meaning.
Author kid, at the end of it, what he took away from is that he didn't believe any of it.
Right. It just was weird.
That was weird. Everything else,
great.
Absolute delightful.
This is a definite read. Like, pick it up if you like fantasy comics. Terrific fantasy stuff. Beautiful art. The characters that Tom created were really fun. It feels like a much longer book than 6 issues. It feels like it's been going on for longer than that. And not time-wise, but just meat of the story-wise. But there's way more here that they could delve into should they want to.
There needs to be, I think, because we just brought the main character to her maturity.
Right.
And we don't know where that leads. And then the one other thing is that they really talk a lot about Joseph, but there's no closure on that.
Well, that's sort of just like the thing. Like, he's the badass that we don't know about.
I know, but by hinting at that, they're telling me there's more story, and then I'll get to know it.
Well, there's tons of story they didn't tell us about.
I guess.
That's just one
that
aspect
just felt
of
like
it.
one that would be, anyways, this could keep going. There could be spin-offs. It doesn't feel like it's not like we've closed the universe off.
That will all be dealt with in Helen of Wyndhorn, number 1, with a D.
Yeah, she actually marries a man named Jason Wyndhorn.
Lord
And she's
Jason
like, this
Wyndhorn.
is perfect. All I have to do is add a D to all of my stationery.
Right.
It's perfect.
I don't even have to change my monograms. My towels. Do people still monogram their towels?
I don't think that happens much. Like old people probably do. And old people probably buy them for young people and then do that. And the young people are like, all right.
Anytime I can monogram something, I monogram it if it's an option. Would you like this monogram? Sure.
What's that about? See, I always think that it was some sort of like if you were in like a boarding school, nobody could take your stuff. They would just wreck it because that's what happens in boarding schools. But today, I don't know. Seems
Something
kind
that happens in boarding schools.
snooty.
DC vs. Vampires World War V number 4. I thought this was very good as well.
Are we going to go with V or... Oh, it's V. It's not 5. Sorry. That makes sense.
Yeah, World War V, World War Vampire. This is also very good. I quite liked it. We got a big reveal on who the secret Batman was, and it's Ra's al Ghul. We got confirmation the dude traveling is Mr. Miracle.
Scot-free.
Was this the book? No, this is part of the problem with too many stories. Is I got confused with Scot-free in this book and Scot-free in a different book. I don't remember
What's
which book
the other
that
book
was.
that he was in? We don't even know.
It was The Source Wall.
It's gone, dude.
Yeah, it's over.
It's gone. I think this is...
Oh, that was Multiverses. You didn't even read that book. It's fine.
Okay. That's why I don't know what you're
I
talking
can't
about.
believe I confused Multiverses and DC versus Vampires.
So,
Woo!
I mean, the thing about this is another Elseworlds book. It's not necessarily a Batman book, but he's heavily featured
totally
in it.
Yeah.
But this is one that does it really well.
Mm-hmm.
This is right up there. I don't think it's quite the Tom Taylor zombie book, but it's amazing how much this has to give, and it's still going, and I'm still interested, and I'm not bored, and I don't think they're stretching it out for no reason, and there is mystery. And again, these are all the characters we know because this is not a different telling of their beginning, it's a different telling of their end.
Yep.
So having that be Ra's al Ghul for a second, you're like, oh, wow, did he change or whatever? And then you sort of see he wants to be changed. And I was like, that's really interesting. He's still a bad guy, and that's how he sees, because he's into living forever, and he's not all that moralistic.
He wants the power of the vampire.
Mm-hmm. So then they can take over the world. And I was like, oh, you've
so
learned nothing.
Live forever and take over the world. I liked his fight with Alfred Green Lantern. He's like, what the fuck, you're a Green Lantern? And that was a fun situation.
It's just big and crazy.
Yeah. Well, I think this is a testament to, and this is Deceased was as well, and other books, even all Winters, that if you have a creator with a vision, it can transcend just the first arc, the first story. It can keep exploring the world.
Yeah.
The story doesn't have to end where it ends originally, because if the vision is strong, it can sustain that. It doesn't always mean the vision is strong. It doesn't always mean it can sustain that every comic or every story, but these can work really well in that sense.
Why is Oliver Queen always able to be a central character in stories like this and work so well?
People love him. He's not powered, so it's interesting. He has that attitude, the anti-establishment attitude. It's fun to write, so that means he never likes to join any real group.
Like he knew everything was going to fall apart all along, you morons. Who was the character who Mr. Miracle fought?
Mr. Miracle.
The white, he had the sword.
Oh, I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know. I hope it's not that dude that made a brief appearance in the Batman books, like the guy he trained with when he was young, who's sort of like him, but more evil. I hope that's not him, because I didn't like him, but I don't know.
Rosenberg didn't write that.
No.
Zdarsky wrote that.
Might have been Tinian, maybe.
No, it was Zdarsky.
Was it?
I don't know why. That's one thing I remember, and I don't remember what the book was called, but that was a Chip Zdarsky
book. It was in the Batman book. It was in Batman.
I know. It was I don't know what it's called, but Chip Zdarsky wrote that.
All right.
Listen, the people on Discord are going to tell me if I'm wrong or not, and they'll tell me what it is, but I feel real strong about it.
I like this Supergirl, too. She's not mean like in Tom's book, but she's, got a harder edge.
I have no idea what's going on in that backup story with her in action.
Oh, yeah, no. I
don't like it. I just don't know what's going on.
That one's not good.
Gorgeous looking, though.
Yes.
Beautiful. Anyway, that has nothing to do with this book.
Also ending this week was the Domain number 5. This is the story within a story from Chip Zdarsky, Rachel Stott, of the book that is being made by the characters in public domain.
I think that 5 issues was plenty.
I think 4 would have been great.
And I'm not complaining about it. I think it turned out better than it should have, and it was interesting, but I feel like we came to the end of the road with it. I was like, I don't want to go to space with them.
Yeah, yeah. Of these 5, I thought there was one really good issue. I think it was 3. The rest I could do without. I just didn't care really what the characters or... When this ended, I was like, yeah, I don't care. I'm not going to space with them. And I was just trying to get this book to the end line for me. It's just fine. It was fine.
It was like a proof of concept that happened, and I was like, all right, I'm cool with that.
Yeah. I think Public Domain's a much better book.
Yes, but it was a little experiment they wanted to do, and
No, it's a fun thing. Like we said before, it's like you're making a book about comic creators making a book. Might as well make the book, and so that's fun. It'd be like if Aaron Sorkin actually made Studio 60 and put it out on the same time Studio 60 and Sunset Strip was coming out.
In fact, after the first issue, it was like, is this awful? And then not. So
it was kind of bad at the beginning.
Yeah, but pulled it out.
So those are the books we wanted to talk about. But at patreon.com/iFanboy, all patrons get a chance to vote to add a book to the rundown. Every patron gets a vote. And this week it was actually pretty tense. We had about 4 books in contention up to the end of the voting. But the winner ended up being G.I. Joe #1 from Image Comics and Skybound.
Oh, that makes this so much easier.
Easier for us. So let's do ratings on G.I. Joe #1. Ratings. I'm going to give it 4.5. I used to say that by definition, Pick Week was a 5, but I've changed my stance on the years. It's giving it a 4.5.
Yeah, I was interesting if you were going to give it a 5 because I wouldn't have. Like I'm at like 4.4.
That's fine.
Yeah, like real good, not perfect, but like it made up for anything by being an awful lot of fun and looking real good.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't judge it that well. Am I going to remember this and think about it forever? Probably not. That's a 5.
Yeah, I agree with you. No, it wasn't a 5. I thought it was a 4.5. It was super fun. Did you read this without it being a Patron Pick? Yes, we did.
Of course. I read it some time ago.
Are you sticking with it?
Yeah.
Yes, I am as well.
There was a sort of preview version that was sent out like a couple of weeks ago, and I read it immediately, which wasn't a great idea because I wouldn't have remembered as much.
I was going to text you actually how hard it was to not read it.
Yeah.
Like I said, the image sent it out a while back.
But they didn't put the last page in there, so I didn't know what happened.
I see. Well, that's partially why I don't read the previews.
Mm-hmm.
A, because I want to read everything the week we're talking about it because I want it to be fresh.
Sure.
I'm so burned by Civil War still after all these years. But Skybound does this. They did it with Void Rivals. When they put out a preview, they don't put in the big twist in it. So I might as well just wait until you get the whole thing. That's my opinion. Anyway, patreon.com/iFanboy. Thanks for being a patron. Thanks for voting this week for G.I. Joe. And now is a time in the show when we reward a patron who gives us the $5 or higher level, and we give them a Double Superpower live on the show. And this week's patron is Robert Blackley. Robert Blackley has complete and total control over water sprinklers in, wait for it, a 10-foot radius. That's actually not a big radius.
It isn't. You really in fact, it almost defeats the point of the sprinkler because the idea is that it's sort of a set and forget it thing.
Well, it doesn't have to be his own sprinkler. He can turn it on and off and change the intensity of the water and make it into a big old water party or turn it down.
Can we talk about the definition of sprinkler?
Sure.
What about like a bidet?
Nope.
Sprinkler. Okay, so it has to be yard based.
Yes.
What about like a children's water park where there are sprinklers that sprinkle around?
Yeah, okay. That's fine. Those are sprinklers technically. And sprinklers in your office building, So
like decorative ones?
The ones that are actually attached to water.
Oh, like fire safety.
Yes.
Okay. Not like the fountain out front.
There are several in the New York City area that are not attached to anything. Those are decorative technically.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, if there was a mafia, that sounds like something they would profit from.
But there's not, so they can't be.
Exactly.
So he can control the intensity, control the flow, turn them on and off. Robert Blackley has sprinkler control.
I gotta say, I don't know what the utility of that is.
Sometimes there isn't one.
Fair enough.
But sometimes you just need water.
Do you think that he goes through his life without even knowing that he has that power?
Well, no, because when it first manifested, he was standing in a field of sprinklers and turned all the ones in the 10-foot radius on. As he walked around, all of them in 10-foot radius would turn on. Mm-hmm. And then they would turn off as he left that radius. It was a whole long night for him.
I just thought that maybe
very wet.
Hopefully he's not just a believer. An incredible coincidence.
This is very strange.
This is crazy. This is like when you drive down the road and all the lights turn green.
Patreon.com/iFanboy. Thanks for being a patron, Robert. We do appreciate it. Thank you very much. Let's do some email. This email comes from Steve B. from Maryland. In Booksplode number 64, Connor mentioned how Frank Miller was on his comic book creator Mount Rushmore. Roughly, how many heads need to be on that mountain before you add Jim Lee, Mike Mignola, Terry Moore, Scotty Young? This was not the direction the question I thought was going to go in.
That's what's impressive about it. How many heads? But in order to determine how many heads, you do have to sort of say, all right, well, you got Jack, Stan, Steve, Will, Joe, Jerry.
The Mount Rushmore has 4 heads.
Right, but he's asking how many heads, which indicates that it's...
You have to first decide who's on your Mount Rushmore, and then you can decide how to expand out.
That's what I'm getting at. So right. I'm just naming people who are ahead of them. I love Terry Moore.
Yeah.
He's a ways back.
The only one I think for me that would be even in the conversation.
There's 2 here that could be, and I don't know which you're going to say. I think I do.
Like, how big is this mountain range? Is Jim Lee is probably within 10 heads of the Mount Rushmore, I think. I haven't done this. I haven't written it all out, but I'm guessing he's within 10
He's
heads.
The closest. He's in terms of like somebody who changed everything.
Yeah, absolutely.
He changed the game. So yes, you're right about that. And the other three, okay,
The
so
other
this is
three I love,
interesting.
but like Scotty Young is an amazing, unique artist. No one draws like him. No one has his imagination, his energy, but you're looking at 100 heads before you get even talking about Scotty Young on there.
Oddly enough, Scotty Young is a very, very popular person who seems like a niche sort of person. Does that make
Absolutely.
sense?
That's interesting because like the stuff he does is very popular, like the designs. They sell a lot of merch based on his designs. The Marvel babies are very popular in that sense, but those people are not going to know who Scotty is. He's interesting.
He's been able to make a really good living by getting known, doing those designs, and then changing it up completely in that he's not drawing books anymore. He switched to a writer and he's still able to do it. He could get by selling original art and never have to work another day in his
100%.
life.
He's told me that specifically. That was 10 years ago. So Jim Lee changed the industry. Terry Moore is a giant of indie comics.
Yeah.
If there's an indie Mount Rushmore, Terry Moore is probably on it. Indie comics Mount Rushmore.
After Eastman and Laird and Jeff Smith, and there's probably Stan Sakai.
Cerebus.
Oh yeah, Dave Sim. So he's not on the top 4.
But also it also depends how deep into comics the next
Robert
goes.
Crumb.
Robert Crumb on there. Yeah. So he might be on the Mount Rushmore of indie comics, maybe, but definitely in the top 10 for that for sure.
Okay.
But of mainstream comics, that's tough. That's tough. Mike Mignola is probably the hardest one to talk about. The other ones I have a strong feeling of where they would be in terms of sort of a general sense. But Mike Mignola is tough.
He's still kind of an indie artist.
And kind of a niche one.
Yes. He's like an artist's artist.
Yes.
Super
What
important.
president would he be like?
Honestly, I don't know how that comparison works. Do we have indie and niche presidents? I know of one, but I'm not a
president's
big fan.
President. Who's the president's president? Who do other presidents really admire, but the people
Truman.
don't? Oh, no, people, maybe.
Truman's a president's president, and I'm basing that solely on the fact that Jed Bartlett said that in an episode of The West Wing.
Mignola, he's certainly... I would love to write this out one day. We were going to do at one point a video show on this, like ranking the all-time comic creators, but we just never did it because it was going to require so much work. And then video show stopped.
Here, I don't know if this answers your question.
Top 50?
But he's after Walt Simonson.
I think he's in the top. He's in the 50. There's got to be 50 heads up there before I start talking about Mignola, probably.
We should do that. We should do the bracket. We should do brackets, and you just go this versus this, and you have to choose one.
Well, that's dumb, because the end of it's going to be Jack Kirby.
I don't know.
I mean, that could be
I bet Ron would throw you for a loop on that. He'd be like Alan Davis, Jack Kirby, and you'd be like, I got to go with my gut here.
Yeah, I mean, I think just 10 heads up there till you get to Jim Lee. I think there's probably 50 heads till Mignola. There's probably 100 heads till Scotty Young and Terry Moore stuff.
How about this?
Yeah.
If we're doing it from 1990 on, Jim Lee makes it.
You're just talking about 90s creators? Yeah.
No, I just mean like 90s forward. Like, I guess if you could do a modern age.
Modern age, post 86?
Like Bronze Age on, I guess.
Well, then it's Alan Moore, Frank Miller.
Oh, it's creators. I was thinking of artists. But yeah, Alan, Frank Moore, John Byrne, Jim Lee.
That might be true. George Perez is probably a conversation for that. But yeah, it's tough.
I'm having a moment here. Wait, hold on.
Got to steal a lot of
Washington, Lincoln, Jefferson. Is it Theodore Roosevelt?
Yes. Washington, Lincoln, Jefferson, and Roosevelt.
So as we're doing this, I start thinking about it, and I'm a little like, I don't know if Theodore Roosevelt should be there.
He's on there because of his parks. That's why he's on there.
Right. No, and I get that makes sense.
I mean, no, it should be Franklin Roosevelt.
I was going to say it should be FDR.
It's because of his creating national parks. That's why his head's there.
Yeah.
Ethan J. from Richmond, Virginia.
How much longer could we have done that?
Another half hour, at least.
I think so. Easily.
That's why I just cut it off. Spinning out of a discussion in the old comics and polls channels on the Discord. This all happened today, by the way. How would you define a run in comics? Is Peter David's decade-long Hulk a run? Is Ellison Hitch's 12 issues in The Authority a run? Is 81 issues of Starman by Harris and then Schneeberg a run? Is The Dark Knight Returns by Miller, Jansen, Varley a run? I'm settling on there needing to be a singular writer or writer team, DeMatteis and Giffen plus McGuire on Justice League, and a cohesive vision for the story, and I think it needs to tell at least one complete story. What is a run? How do you define it?
I believe it should be a very malleable term.
I think everyone's going to have a different definition of it.
Yeah, but we have the microphones.
Sure not, but what I'm saying is I think I know what I think, but this is not a subject I feel incredibly strongly about.
Answer the questions. Is
Okay.
Peter David's decade-long Hulk a
Yes,
run?
that's obviously a run.
Is Ellison Hitch's 12 issues on Authority a run?
Yes.
Can a miniseries be a run?
Well, it wasn't a miniseries. It kept going.
You're right. Okay, there you go. So that doesn't answer that question. 81 issues of Starman by Harris, but then Schneeberger run.
Yes.
No, it's a series.
Okay, well, we got to define what a run is. Dark Knight's obviously not a run. It's a miniseries.
I think it has to take place within a longer bit because 81 issues of Starman is all of the issues. So it's not a run, it's the run.
Oh, that is a good point. He did every issue? Well, Schneeberg did some.
No, like James, if it was anybody's run, it would James Robinson's run, but it's not. It's his series. The Preacher's not a run, not a Garth Ennis, Steve Dillon
no, you're
run.
right. You're right.
It's a series.
My definition of a run is a part of a whole, meaning a run is a segment of a long-running book. It has to be an ongoing series, and this is a segment of it. It can't be the entire run, like you just said with Starman. It can't be a miniseries. But the thing is, it doesn't have to be long. Peter David's is like a legendary run on Hulk, but also Ellison Hitch's 12 issues is a run of Authority because the Authority kept going after that with Miller and Quietly.
Paul Dini's run on
Detective Comics was a year, but that's still a run.
Mm-hmm.
As long as it's a segment of a larger piece, it's a run. That's my feeling.
Has to be enough to make an impact.
Well, no,
I think. Okay, I know what you mean, but like I see how
that makes it a legendary run or a celebrated run. It's just a run. A run is a run. It could be a
fair enough.
It could be a disastrous run. The Larry Hama run on Batman was a disastrous run, but it was still a run. He did a run on Batman.
Joe Kelly's great issue of Action Comics number 775, not a run.
Not a run. Single issue
in the midst of another run or whatever. And
it's kind of like pornography. You kind of know when you see it, like, how short can a run be? I don't know. But to me, the most important thing is it's a piece of a longer thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's a run on Amazing Spider-Man. It's a run on Batman. It's a run on Green Lantern. It's a run on Fantastic Four. It's John Byrne did a run on Fantastic Four.
Right.
Hickman did a run on Fantastic Four. Dan Slott did a run on Fantastic Four. And you're right. It's usually a writer because a writer can do that, whereas an artist usually can't.
I'm trying to think
of Kirby did his run on Fantastic Four because he did the first.
Yeah, but it's
usually a writer. Because the writer.
Well, it says it's singular writer or writer team.
Yeah.
It could be an artist if the artist was the consistent part. It's just it doesn't happen very much.
Yeah, like McGuire wasn't consistently the artist for Timotheus and Giffen. I mean, at all, but not even the time he did it.
It is something to be said that like the artist never gets named because conceivably they didn't write the story. They illustrated the story. Now I know that is fraught.
Right. I just think they can't do it. Like, okay, here's a question for you. What is Astro City?
You're going to say it's a... No, because Kurt Busiek wrote every issue. It's his series.
Right, but Brent Anderson almost did every issue, but didn't do every issue.
Well, you could say...
It's similar to Starman.
You could say Jesus Abertov's run on... Okay. You could say Jesus Abertov's run on Astro City. I think that works.
It's very malleable.
The person whose run it is has to be the constant, though.
Right. So then you say Schneeberg's
run.
IKEA Bookshelf's run on Starman, because he just did a small part of it.
He did half of it.
Did he do half of it?
I think. I mean, I'm not sure exactly when he came on, but it's...
But then you could say Harris's run on Starman if he did the other.
You could. But no matter of the percentage, you could say that.
Yeah. It's a piece of a longer piece. It's never a miniseries. And that's why in this age of renumberings and rebootings and all this stuff, it takes away that feeling of you were part of a larger tapestry, you know?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Like we talked about it with John Romita Jr. doing what was like 30% of all issues of Amazing Spider-Man. Like, it may not have been that high, but it was some giant percentage. Like, he has had several runs on Amazing Spider-Man.
Sure. Yeah, no. By the way, he did issues 50 to 80. So he did like a third, maybe a little more.
Who?
Schneeberg.
Oh, a third of Starman. Yeah, so he did a run on Starman. It's tough. I'm not going to go to the mattresses over it.
Sure.
I don't feel super strongly about it. I do think it's a piece of a larger thing. It's what made comics special for so long before the whole renumbering thing started, was that these things started back in the 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, and they kept going, and you came on and you put your stamp on it, and the book kept going.
It still happens. It's just that it's harder to identify it.
Right.
Yeah, because there's lots of people who have been on a character for several quote unquote volumes. You know, you'd still call it their run on the character. Who just somebody. I'm sure there's a good example of it somewhere. Josh Williamson on Superman, or Mark Waid, or whatever.
So if for Astro City, people tend to think of it as Busiek, Anderson, and Ross.
Do they? Because I think of it as Kurt Busiek's Astro City.
Well, yeah, but until Brett Anderson didn't draw it, I always thought of it as Busiek and Anderson's.
Yeah, okay, but here's what we learned with that. And again, life is not fair to artists, and I recognize that. If there is no Kurt Busiek, there's no Astro City.
Sure.
And we've learned that without Brett Anderson, there is Astro City. Now, Alex Ross has been in every Astro City, but I don't think they don't do it if he's not around.
Sure, but I don't think it'd be the same. The feeling wouldn't.
No, absolutely, but some of those are outliers. Like, that's an outlier.
Yeah, that's such a unique book. I'm just trying to think of like a team. Like Giffen, DeMatteis, and Maguire are known as the team on Justice League in their early days, but Maguire didn't do every issue. He couldn't. But he did a lot of them.
Yeah,
and people
but
still think
I
of
think
them,
you
three
count
of them as that era. And every time they come back to the team, those three always do it.
See, that's a really interesting one, too, because I've definitely heard people refer to that as the Maguire run. Like any of those people, the Giffen run. You know what? DeMatteis is the one who gets shafted on that one.
Sure, and he was the scripter.
Right.
Like everyone talks about the jokes. Giffen did the plots.
He put the wah. He didn't have the buh.
DeMatteis is lost in that translation.
Yeah.
He doesn't get enough credit for it.
Harder name to say.
But also, I think Giffen was real good at being amiable and funny in press and stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He didn't take credit for it. He just was the face of it.
No, I agree.
And he's also a legend.
Yes.
Not that DeMatteis isn't, but Giffen really was a legend. He's up there on the Mount Rushmore before any of the other. Well, not before Jim Lee, but he's on there before the other three.
Mm-hmm.
Whew. 2 good questions.
Yeah.
That we've never had before in 19 years.
How do you define a run? Seems like we would have had that before.
Maybe. I don't remember.
Just because it's so like, it's a word that we use all the time that no one's ever asked us to define. It just is what it is. And you understand it. So there was an exercise in pedantry.
Thanks for writing in. We love having you on the show as a part of it. We want to hear from you. Contact@ifanboy.com is how you can write in and get in this show, or put Mediasplode in the subject line. We got a great Mediasplode email the day after we recorded the Mediasplode, which we'll just save for next time. But I laughed when it came in because you and Ron would have loved it. It was about punk rock. So next time. So let's talk about other shows. A couple weeks ago, we had our Booksplode, Batman, The Dark Knight Strikes Again. Not a run, but it was a book. We talked about it. And then this past week, just like I said, we put out our Mediasplode show right behind this show on the feed. We did our year-end mailbag, did a bunch of emails. It was super fun. And we'll be back next year. Here's what the rest of the year looks like. This coming week, Josh has a Talksplode. Perhaps hasn't not been recorded yet, but it is scheduled. So
I have an agreement. It exists on digital calendars. Links have been exchanged.
So hopefully this coming week, there'll be a Talksplode. Then we have 3 more picks of the week this year. November 24th, December 1st, 9:56, December 8th, 9:57. And then that week we'll have either another Talksplode or a bonus Booksplode. We haven't figured that out yet. And then a couple days later, the final show of the year, the All Media Year-End Roundup, which we've been doing every year since we started doing this, will come out on December 15th. We go into our hibernation break. We come back January 5th, fresh as daisies, and that'll be pick of the week 958.
I could use about an eon of Odin sleep right now.
I'm so tired. My alarm went off this morning. I was genuinely angry about it. It's like, ugh.
I've been angry about every alarm that ever woke me up for my entire life. Like, in my bones. I am not into waking up.
Well, one day you won't.
I have a watch. The minute hand says, remember. And then the hour hand says, you will die.
Yikes.
And the name of the watch is The Accurate. I bought it immediately and paid too much for it.
All right.
And the nice man who changed the battery in the mall went, this is a very nice watch. And I was like, thank you, sir. It's very nice. You can find our library of over 1,400 shows at ifanboy.com or wherever podcasts are sold. You can follow us at iFanboy Comics on Instagram to find out what the pick of the week is before the show comes out. And sometimes for the best of the week in panels, sometimes you will hear me stifle a yawn and wonder if I did it successfully. I don't know. That's up to you. Follow us individually. See us Kilpatrick on Instagram or J.A. Flanagan on Instagram.
Subscribe to youtube.com/ifanboy. That's where you'll find all of our old video shows back when we did video shows. You can watch us on the couch talking about comics and think about what it would have been like if we ever had done that show ranking the all-time comic creators. We never did it, though. We also post this show there every week. Hello, if you're listening there. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, make sure you go into the podcast app and set iFanboy to auto-download. It really helps us out if you do that. And if you're listening on Pocket Cast, you can now give the show a rating.
Ratings.
Oh. You need to be subscribed and have downloaded a few episodes before you can rate it. But please, if you fit that criteria, take a few minutes, give us a nice rating. We appreciate you. And please consider writing a review or leaving a star rating on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you for listening. My name is Connor.
And I'm Josh. Yep, that's good.